A woman falls from a plane. Not a few hundred feet, not a few thousand. She falls 6 miles out of the sky with no parachute. 27 other people on that flight died. She lived. And what makes it even stranger, she was never supposed to be on that flight at all. This really happened, a documented historical anomaly triggered by a single administrative error. January 1972, the Copenhagen airport is bustling with the energy of a normal travel day. 22-year-old Vesna Vulović is a flight attendant for Yugoslav Airlines. She's young, vibrant, and only 1 year into the job. Through a simple mix-up, the airline confused her with another flight attendant who shared her first name, Vesna. Vesna boards the DC-9 in Copenhagen, taking the place of the colleague she was confused with. She is bound for Belgrade on a flight she was never scheduled to take. She moves through the cabin, smiling at passengers and serving drinks, completely unaware she has just stepped onto a plane that will change aviation history. A mundane clerical mistake had just linked her fate to a doomed aircraft. The aircraft climbs to 33,000 feet, over 6 miles above the snowy mountains of Czechoslovakia. Then, without warning, an explosion tears through the plane. A bomb, hidden in the luggage, triggered by a crude timer. In an instant, the DC-9 is ripped into 3 pieces. 27 passengers and crew are gone. Vesna is pinned inside the broken tail section of the plane, and she begins to fall. In this fraction of a second, she becomes the subject of a brutal physics experiment. 6 miles. That is how far she falls, trapped inside a piece of the shattered aircraft. Fate stacked a few impossible things in her favor. Wedged into the fuselage, she was held in place by a food cart. That trapped section acted like a shield as she plummeted, preventing her from being sucked out into the freezing thin air. Far below, the wreckage came down not onto concrete or rock, but onto a steep, snow-covered mountainside, thick with pine trees. The deep snow, the pine trees, the angle of the slope, they softened an impact that should have been the end. Her survival was the result of a microscopic alignment of physical variables that perfectly cushioned her descent. Vesna lay in the snow, broken and barely alive, drifting in and out of consciousness amidst the twisted metal. She would have died there in the cold, except for a local woodsman named Bruno Honky, who heard faint cries coming from the debris. Of all the people who could have found her, Bruno had been a medic in the Second World War. He knew exactly how to keep a gravely injured person alive. He reached her, treated her bleeding, and kept her breathing until help arrived. The mountain's geometry saved her from the impact, but the astronomical odds of being found by a war medic saved her from the freezing night. The damage to her body was catastrophic. A fractured skull, broken legs, a broken pelvis, 3 crushed vertebrae. She fell into a coma. For days, doctors were uncertain if she would ever wake up. But she did. And when she finally opened her eyes, the very first thing she asked for was a cigarette. The fall shattered her body, but her spirit remained untouched. She spent nearly a year and a half recovering. Doctors marveled at her will to live as she learned to walk again. She eventually earned a Guinness World Record for the highest fall ever survived without a parachute, a record that still stands today. The award was handed to her by none other than Paul McCartney, the idol of her youth. Vesna Vulović didn't see herself as lucky. She saw herself as a survivor. Her story is proof of how a chain of mundane accidents and extraordinary miracles can decide the fate of a human life.